Hello and welcome to Rad Class. Today I'm gonna talk about police. So we all know how police is supposed to work. They're there to help and take care of lawbreakers and make sure the world around us is safe and now nice to be in. But as I talked about in my last episode of my podcast where I talked about bias, this can also affect police. But before you go like, is this gonna be 10, 15 minutes of you just talking about how police are bad and stuff like that? Well, no. I want to talk about this in a neutral way. I want to talk about it from both sides, how we can actually make policing better for our lives and their lives. And it's not a quick fix, and I'm not an expert in police ways or how they work. All I know is what I know from a police officer I know and talked with, and data and research and news from the wider world. So police is something that we all hear or see some in a daily basis, and we see them in the news, we see them in movies, TV, and so on. And we have always been told when we were kids, when I was a kid, that you could always trust the policeman, that you could always follow what they said and do what they said to you, and they would always protect you. But that has shifted over the last few years because now people actually don't always trust the police and they don't always do what they say. And we need to get back to a point where we can trust the police, where we actually begin to trust them enough that we will begin to do what they say with no fear. And we will never get back to 100% trust in police. It's just not something we will do. But it would be great to go uh, down the line and actually have a better relationship with the police all over the world instead of the police force slowly being seen as something bad. Um, so I hope that we get to some golden line where it will turn better. So the first thing we can do, and it sounds kind of weird, but we need to make the work safer for the police. And it sounds silly because the police is there to make the world safe for us. But data has shown when police is working in an area where they don't feel safe or welcome, or they feel like they're always being judged harshly when they're in that area, well, then they will react in the same way because data shows that if a police officer thinks that every day might be the last day, they will react accordingly. And it must be so much more worse in places where you can actually own guns and everyone can have a gun because then you don't know if your life is on the line every time you basically go on patrol. So yeah, it might sound weird that we need to make the world a safer place for the police since they're the ones who should make the world safer for us. But if you think about it for more than 2 minutes, it's actually not that crazy. Because if you had a workplace where when you got to work in a shop, let's say a shop, and you get to work in the shop, and every day you had the fear of someone coming in and killing you because records showed that 5 other people have been killed by customers in this exact shop, then you will begin to react to that reality. You will begin to judge people when they enter the shop. Is this person gonna harm me? This person gonna do something bad to me? And when you live with something like that, then your mind will slowly turn. Your mind will slowly become more defensive. And then you will begin to think that the world is against you. And when you think that way, then you will begin to actually react according to that worldview you have. Now, I know police is trained to handle a lot of decision making and stressful things that we are not meant to experience as just ordinary citizens. But if you are in this mix of insecurity and dread for a long time, your mind will begin to change, no matter how well trained you are, because you do believe in the end that people are there to hurt you. And then you will begin to do whatever you can to go on work and stay safe so you can come home again alive. And sadly, that means that some places cops do a lot of harm because they react out from a fear that people around them are going to hurt them. And I know it's even worse for people they have a bias against minorities because they tend to always draw the conclusion that they are there to hurt you, even though it's not true. But I will cover why that happens later in the episode. But we also need to feel safe around the police. So that's actually why I suggest body cams for everyone, every police officer, that is, and every police vehicle. And it should be something that we give everyone because then you can actually see what police are doing. And body cams have places shown to decrease this harsh behavior and the constant use of force against minorities or people they have a bias against. And I really do believe it's a great tool because not only will it help us make it more safe for us, so if they do something wrong, we can prove it, but it also helps the police because in the end, it makes it so they can prove if we did something wrong first. So it can help both sides. But there can be some problems with body cams, and that is why I suggest that the body cam becomes activated as soon as you step out of the door and begin your patrol. That way, you can't turn it off, you can't tamper with the data, you can't do something to start it after you did something wrong. It will always be on. And I know this will take insane storage units with a lot of data in them. And I actually propose that we have two of those units because the police should have their own unit, and then a neutral part should actually have a backup unit. So to make sure that none of the data gets tampered with by the police, because then we are 100% sure that what we see and hear is the truth and the entire truth, because then we get the whole picture. And I'm gonna come with some examples why this is important. I know a police guy, and some years ago there was a police video going around on social media where I live, where a cop enters a flat and he's getting recorded, and then he arrests a person in the flat. But what we did not see were what led up to the arrest. And it was actually two men who kept going out into the hallway, taunting the police, calling them names, and interfering with what they were trying to do next door, where they were trying to arrest a person. And after the third time, they have been asked to go back into their flat and stop harassing the police. The police told them, if you come out again and harass us again, we're gonna arrest you. So stay away and let us do our job. And then, of course, the guys were like, well, we're gonna do it again and we are gonna record their response. So they went out, taunting them again, went into the flat and began recording as the police actually followed them. And a police officer follows them and tries to talk to them and ends up arresting them. But we didn't see what happened before. And had there been body cams on the police with video and audio, we would have been able to, from the police side, to say this video going around on social media making us look like assholes. It's not true. Here is the entire video that we recorded during this phase, so you can actually see how they came out and taunted us and so forth. And you can often see how it also works the other way, where you in the news see cell phone footage of police arresting a person, and you see them use a lot of force on the people, more than is necessary. And then the police goes out and say, "We did it like it should be done by the book," and then 15 videos of them actually doing the opposite thing comes to life on the internet and in the news and shows how they lied. So body cams can work for both sides. Now, the next thing is some better training in handling your bias when you're on patrol and when you're interacting with people. Since I did talk about bias and worldview in the previous episode, I recommend you go listen to that and then if you find all this interesting. But since bias does shape how we understand the world, it also shapes how the police interact in the world. And police need to be able to keep an open mind and to go about and make sure that they don't judge people on looks of faith or whatever, because we are all equal under the law. Thereby, we all need to be treated equally with respect and humanity. How we do this, it's something that can be hard to do, but my suggestion is to make people try and educate them. Make someone who has a lot of understanding on bias and how to not be biased, try and train them. Get some people into the police force who will go on patrols with the police and actually see what happens in real life so they can try and make a strategy on how to begin to change the bias in the police force, because we might be sitting here saying a lot of good things, but sometimes the theories we drop out doesn't match reality, and then we need to adjust them. So getting someone out there who is neutral in all this to see how it all goes on, who can see body cam footage, etc., procedures, and then let them find a way to make it all better so the police can do their work by still having an open mind and not being biased against certain ethnicities or religions and so forth. Now, the next thing again with bias, this one is a hard one because what we need to do is to stop showing bad worldviews or bad biases in TV shows and movies and stuff like that. Because if we keep showing this biased point of view TV show where, let's say, the police is always arresting a black guy, then police will begin to believe that all black guys are bad because it might be a TV show that has been running for, let's say, the entire youth. So their bias have been formed by watching this show. And it's the same when you see science in TV shows where they're able to zoom in and get insane nice details. And then people believe you can do that in real world. Or how they can magically find DNA and get it sampled within an hour to find the people who did the crime, because that is not how science in police works. I know it will be long episodes, but we have to kind of address it to make it more neutral so that people can actually watch it and go back to their life afterwards and not have been imprinted with bad ideas and biases that infect how they do their job in the daily life. And we also need to be more harsh with our news. I'm not saying that we need to censor all the news. I'm just saying that a lot of places would have benefited a lot from having neutral news because then you can get your news without being forced some sort of bias in the news you are seeing. Because if you're only watching some news that keeps saying that this ethnicity is bad, this ethnicity keeps robbing, this ethnicity does this and this, then you begin to believe it and it begins to shape the way you view the world. And it's something we can change quite easily, actually, by the news themselves, by actually reporting equally, no matter who the perpetrator is in the crime, because they tend to spin it out of control when it's someone who has an ethnicity they don't like in that news cycle. And when it's someone they like, they keep saying, oh, it's just a solo act. The person needs some help, it's actually a good guy, etc., etc., instead of actually treating them equal. And because they're not being treated equal in the news, it creates an uneven playing field in how our bias is created depending on what news we watch. And it's something that we really need to be aware of. And that's why I love places where they actually have neutral news because it gives you all the data you need to know about what is happening without trying to tell you that these people are bad, these people are bad, or something like that. And now to the last thing. And it's something that we as public can't do much about because it's on the police themselves and their unions. And it's something that I find kind of insane every time I see the news, where a police officer have done something wrong, and then the entire police district is saying, well, we will support our comrade no matter what, and they begin to threaten to go off work and not do their job, etc. And it's the same when someone inside the police force tries to actually tell about someone doing something bad, they rat the person out. And it's something that is so dumb because, again, everyone is equal under the law, even the police. So if someone is doing something wrong, they need to be addressed. They need to go to jail if they murder someone. They need to be fired if they keep doing something bad. There's no other profession. You wouldn't go to a shop and see a guy just hurling stuff into the shelves, not being fired because the store owner will be like, that's not cool. And the rest of the employees in the store won't say, if you fire that guy, we will all go. And it's something that we really need to see a change in the police system. So when people come and say, I have details about this police officer, he did something wrong, then they're just treated like a normal person because what they did was just telling there's a crime going on, we need to stop it. Something bad is going on, we need to stop it. And it's something that we really have to address. And also the fact that sometimes the police would actually get away with a lot of bad stuff because the system is kind of tipped in their favor. Again, even though everyone is equal under the law. And then inside the police force again, you also have to remember what things you are reacting to. Like we've seen a lot of protests in the past few years. And sadly, we have also seen how some of these peaceful protests have been brutally encountered by police. And they actually did ask with the police if they acted different when they began to suit up in full riot gear. And all the police basically said, yes, we do feel like we act differently. We feel like we have some more power. And you really need to remember that as police, you set an example for us. So when you turn up to a peaceful protest where people might just be sitting chanting in full riot gear, then you actually send a very different signal than you actually should. What you should do is show up with normal police officer in their normal gear to assess the situation, and if it breaks out to begin to be something where a riot team is needed, call the riot team in. Don't start out with the riot team. Remember, you are trained to downscale conflicts, not make them worse, but make them better. And you don't actually see people downscale stuff when you're standing with a giant weapon in your hand, because what it does, it shows that you're gonna take it up a notch. And we have seen a lot of news, especially from the USA, where police have brutally attacked even reporters who have a right not to be attacked in the law, who have been pepper sprayed, rubber bulleted, attacked with maces in the middle of interviews. And it's something that you need to address, and you need to do it now, because when you come into a peaceful protest with no riot gear, have faith in the protest, have faith in people, because when you come and show you're not there to make things worse, but you're actually just there to protect the people who are protesting, then people won't react in the same way. Then they will look at you and go like, the police is here. They're here to help us. They're here to protect us. And they will see when you are calm, they stay calm. So try and remember what kind of point of view you're giving us when you turn up in full riot gear with a lot of weapons and stuff like that. So I do hope that we in some future can see a happy and safe world for both the police and us someday. The sooner the better, to be honest, looking at the news around the world. But I do hope you found this podcast episode interesting. If you did and haven't listened to my bias podcast, well, give it a listen. And any other episode you like, try that as well. I do have a lot of them out. And you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, Patreon. Just search for Rant Class. And I hope you join me there and share this around if you find it interesting. I wish you all a very happy day.